Hello, and welcome to a conversation with our brother, Shamsul Ali. I'm your host today, Brian Ali. I'm glad you tuned in. We're going to be talking about a topic I think that's going to be interesting to you. So, for the next hour or so, please tune in, turn on your ears, and really pay attention to what we're talking about. Talking about a particular topic that I think everyone will be interested in, and that is the topic of mutuality. Before I get started, I want you to know this is not a scripted program. This is not something that we set aside, and I have a set of questions, and the man's going to answer just a set of questions and say, "Oh, I know that," and it's been practiced and it's been rehearsed. This is not that kind of thing. Our brother is in town, and we welcome him back to the city of brotherly love. He has left us, unfortunately, to the warmer climates of the West Coast, which he reminds me of whenever we talk, and we do talk frequently. I wanted to let you know that what you're going to hear is the truth, and the truth, as I said, is like a lion. You don't have to defend it. You don't have to protect it. You just have to let it loose. And you can trust me that everything you're going to hear in the next hour or so is going to be the truth, the gospel truth. So again, I'm asking you to pay close attention to what you hear. Think about what you hear after it's over, because it will be a test. No, it's a joke. No test, but again, we want you to understand what we're trying to do is convey a message to, I guess, the whole of the humanity, not just, let's say, any particular group. We're going to talk about the topic of mutuality, but we're not going to try to be mutually exclusive. That's for individual groups who want certain real ritualistic performances from each other, and they exclude certain people from that group, and this group excludes certain people from that group, and that's how you get members of the Abrahamic faiths to say, we do this, we don't do that, or they divide up. The Jewish faith may divide into Orthodox and Reform. The Christian faith may be Lutheran, Methodist, Baptist, Episcopalian. The Muslims may be Sunni, Shia, Hanafi, Ansari. We're trying to show that there's a mutuality in the major religions, that we can all combine our effort and unite our effort to put an end to the insanity, if you will, that seems to be going on right now in the world at large. We're not just talking about just because there was or is a pandemic, or there was or is a war in this place or that place. We're talking about a restructuring of your thinking and all of our thinking, so we can understand what our the mutuality we have in our belief system, and we can combine our efforts one with another, brother to brother, sister to sister, to again avert the catastrophe that looks like it may be going on in society. So we don't want to be mutually exclusive. We want to be mutually inclusive. We want to include everyone in this topic of mutuality. We want to include everyone into the dutiful worship that I believe we were put here for, to observe, and not just ritualistically observe it, but to actually be obedient servants to the Creator. The mutuality extends because we have a belief in the one Creator and the one creation and the one God. On that note, I want to turn over the microphone and ask our brother to expound on the topic of mutuality, the mutuality that is in existence, and what is not yet in existence that can be brought into existence. So, Brother Emmanuel, please help the people to understand this topic of mutuality, this which we have conversed many times, and what you told me on many occasions. I said, this shouldn't be something just for me to hear. A few of the brothers are here. It needs to be heard worldwide, universally heard. So can you expound on that topic of mutuality, of the word itself even, and then that, what did lead you into the hopefully profound, but normally profound statements that you would make on that topic?
Well, I think that First of all, I think that the term mutuality, such as so many other words as well, carries a lot of definition, and definitions are probably thoughts, expressions, perceptions that various persons have given about maybe that word. I think that in most instances, the thing that probably is needed to be done more often than it is that things should be simply made or kept simple. Rather than say made simple, kept simple. And I think that at all times we do not keep things simply as they are. Now, certainly we would probably find no difficulty agreeing that all human life, all human beings share in the same way and in the same interests the processes that we find as normal, simple, everyday living. They all breathe air. They all drink water. They all eat food. They all endeavor in exchange with each other to be understood. These patterns and activity shows that mutuality is a real natural component of the human life itself. But now the question, to go back to so many definitions that may exist, may very well indicate that we are perceiving the value of mutuality improperly and even using it improperly. And maybe sometimes we're not realizing that we are forgetting that there should be unification and it should be ongoing, existing all the time, so that mutuality can be seen as the value that it can be and is, in fact, in the normal, natural human life. It's a very simple thing. But differences that we perceive that we have are not differences that we got from the creator of the heavens and the earth. We got those differences from our own self. That's us. We find ourselves in the same holding little positions or choosing positions that we later call diverse in context or in reasons and reasonable people say they should differ or can be even unified in their diversities. That's all a lot of, I should say, confusion. If it's kept simple and followed in the order of simplicity, it makes it easier for everyone. It makes it easier for a child to understand. It makes it easier for a parent to be able to communicate and do some seasoned growth for a child. It makes it easier for a neighbor to be able to communicate and have an aligned trust and respect with his neighbor, if it's patterned off those simple neutral things. But that's not usually what we are focused upon, nor is it discussed. We have in our world such brilliant, I refer to them as being conspiratory engineers who seemingly have found ways to conspire for benefit for themselves or their group or whatever. And in doing so, they begin to gnaw away or remove the simplicity of mutuality that is clear and simple in the universe. So, we can find in our world every bit of everything that you can think of, seasoned with this here imperiority that we're talking about in relationship to mutuality. Certainly the Creator is not divisive, and he shows no evidence in his creation that division and disunity and confusion is a method or suggestion or even a scheme that he has permitted into his universality. It is not. But that means we have to turn and look at ourselves and see whether or not we have understood by the simplest examples what would be the best course for us to choose for ourselves and to set up and then regulate a wholesome, decent, honorable, fearless existence on the earth as people dwelling together. The distrust that you see in the world, and I say in the world because I think we'd agree it's all over the world, wherein two people find that they must select to have certain reservations and suspicions in their relationship. That goes on with husband and wife, children and parents. The confusion that thick, men and women. The idea and fact of the choices of creation that the Creator Himself has created, and He's the only one who creates. We have made differences in His creation as to what I think over what you think, what I want to be over what you want to be, what you ain't, what I'm not, and all that. All of that is concoctions made up of minds that are really doubtful that they can perform or even embarrassed or ashamed of their performance in living the life that should be simple. So mutuality is really a wanted thing. Wanted by everybody, not necessarily realized, but wanted by everybody. Everybody would like to have peace. They like to have the confidence and the contentment of being able to say their neighbor or the person they are electing to be in business or sharing concerns of a nature that's beneficial to many beyond themselves, that is sound, it's good, it concludes with a fulfillment. It doesn't bring or foster disappointment, But all of that is just things that we talk about or we try to talk about to try to point up the lack of mutuality and the non-sense of not having the sense to see the value of mutuality. So the word itself, understand, probably, as I said earlier, have many things said in reference to it, and there will be some words that maybe will be supportively adding to the emphasis of the common simplicity of it, and there's other words that will be discounting and acting as if it's contrary to what has been so simply explained. But that's the world we're in. We're in a world that starts off not being true to itself. If I have aspirations to do something for the benefit of mankind, then I should make that clear. If I have those aspirations, it will only be founded in the fact that I see mutuality, seeing the sameness, the oneness, the reality of the one life itself is very impelling. So when I start thinking of it as being in various grades, classifications, and status, and all that kind of stuff, that's me concocting something that can add up to nothing but confusion. It's going to confuse somebody, and more than likely, it's starting off from a confused person.
Do you think is that how things got so complex and complicated? It's by the individual putting his own proclivities or his own thoughts on things as opposed to being or accepting the things as they are?
It's worse than that. It starts off by the individual first, failing to adhere to what it is that's so clearly dictating his own being, owing to his creator himself. I mean, how do we question one who avails us of breath, the breathing, that we don't anticipate at any time, didn't anticipate upon arriving here, was here for a while before we even knew he was here? Live every day, breathe every day, go through every day, not anticipating, don't even know how many breaths we take. It will not be the one who maneuver or handle or address the last breath we take either. So these things tell us that our reasoning in reference to our own life, we've complicated it by overlooking things that are simply ongoing or repeatedly and are not in any way dependent upon or operated by our believed or guessed at or fantasized power. You and I have 9 systems of human beings in general. I don't think anyone has more than 9 systems. The medical world may have some insight. They've learned in the last few days since they want to go to Mars. I don't know, that kind of stuff. It's unreasonable, but at the same time, 9 systems.
They might declare that not to be a planet soon.
Well, they may declare anything because they declare a lot of things already that tell you they may declare anything. But the point of this is, at least that's the way it looks now. We pray they'll get on the right course. But anyway, when you look at that and you think about it, and you realize that we don't honor respectfully. People talk about worship and duty, and they emphasize piety and claim of what they are religiously. But the simplest part of religion is obedience to the one who creates and sustains you. And you don't have to go hear somebody tell you about that. You live it every day. You got 9 systems, like I was earlier saying, but you don't have no remote control in any way whatsoever to operate them. You don't have no sight upon them in their daily operative motions. You don't have no sight upon that, and you can't control that.
But you're referencing nervous system.
No, any of the 9.
Okay.
It's 9. I didn't want to, but any of the
Well,
9
I wanted to look
systems.
smarter than I actually am. So.
Well, if somebody have, ability to and want to point out to us clearly that there is some indeed proof that there is some operational control we have in our hands, in our minds, in our hearts over those 9 systems, I think they should disclose that so all of us can be more comfortable.
Oh, definitely.
But I don't think they can, because I don't think that's realistic to even be guessing that. Because why would a creator that sustains this whole universe give some people who can wander into doubt so easily that much power? They're destructive enough in their fantasy.
That alone could complicate things.
It had already complicated things. So, so we go to neutrality and you look at it and you say, oh man, mutuality has been sailing. If there's a difference that we have, it should be based on something that we know is absolute. If we can base our differences resolve our differences based on an absolute, mutually agreeing that it's an absolute, the contention and the disagreement and the difficulties that we may think we got will be easily resolved. But as long as someone has some mysterious claim in his mind that he wants to hold on to and wants to take and use it as a sort of defensive tool against what he imagines is in someone else's mind, forgetting that we're just human beings, one life, Once that happens, it just starts to spread, man. It's worse than cancer. Wow. I mean, we live in a world where this is a nice neighborhood, seemingly, but I see that there's signs that indicate this building is under this alarm company. So I mean, what are we talking about here? 2 people living next door to each other, because they're seemingly houses, understand, adjoined right to each other. And each one got particular and want to secure the best lock on his door. And he walk out every day and look in his neighbor's face. And the thought of mutuality, they're right next door. The thought of having some mutual concerns and values, never discussed. And then when they decide that there's a necessity to try to have some kind of unification called neighborhood, they said, let's make a neighborhood organization.
Neighborhood watch, yeah.
And then in the neighborhood organization, everybody comes out, meets each other, and say, I'm so-and-so, this is my name, this is my name. Like they're meeting, like they came from another planet or something. They live next door to each other. Their children go to school together. Schools fail because what? The lack of simple common sense, order, and respect. So that means the children who go to that school are not prepared in their home environment to go to school with other children who are also not prepared in their home environment. So mutuality in the common sense way would be of value, but this disunity that seems to be pervading is a terror. It's tearing lives up. It's causing problems. You can see, and if you look further, you look at the leadership in the society, and you say, well, there's a lot of leadership. And basically, our leadership probably would be identified in the likeness of being religious, academic, political. Okay? From that springs all kinds of organizations, and segments of a different nature. But the thing that is outstanding here is that seemingly religious, academic, and political leadership has more that they share and employ in the overall governance of the mass than the mass have an understanding of the value that either one of them contribute. Now that doesn't make sense. So if the leadership in religion, no particular religion, just the idea that they put forth that we accept as being their understanding and their presentment of religion, concepts and so forth, values and so forth. If those things doesn't equate equality, the universality of the life being one, if they don't equate those things and define them in such a way that those who participate in the religious order can come outside of that order and see human faces without difficulty. If I look in a person's face and see them as a human being, but it's totally distracted because they happen to be darker or lighter or whiter or whatever, that's kind of ridiculous, isn't it? But it's accepted in a world where the common sense of mutuality don't exist. They don't see each other as human beings. So if I don't see a person as a human being and I think myself to be whatever, I'm going to be oppressive and I'm going to be injurious because I'm going to be actually imposing something on someone, not even being capable of examining whether or not they could take what I'm imposing without total disturbance, or that they'll even accept it all. Now, what are we doing when we do that? Are we looking to find a mutual position to reason from? Are we consulting with each other so as to verify that such a mutual position can exist? The question would be no. We are holding up arguments that we don't know how to begin, how to continue, what compromises were made, and whether or not there was any actual solution given to any of the problems that still linger on. I asked someone once, and this is it was an unfortunate thing that I asked someone that they had piled on with a lot of things that I guess they felt was needed, and maybe they was trying to do a good thing by saying it. But, we have a lot of things going on in this country, and things such as we want to change what has been the sort of impressions and concepts that we think at this point have come to the conclusion think they're dangerous and disturbing and hindering and all that kind of stuff. So they want to take down a guy that had a dream. Who's the guy that had a dream? Choose anyone. Robert E. Lee, Andrew Jackson, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. All these guys had dreams too. Martin Luther King, dreams too. Now, some of these guys have had the opportunity and have taken and had the opportunity to conjure up enough power and structure to make their dreams take on a semblance of reality. And some did it in a bludgeoned way, forcefully. Some did it in usage of intellectual maneuvering or conspiratory engineering, whatever way you want to describe it. Some did it that way. And all of them have congregated together and when they net themselves together, they still can't show mutuality in what they have seized upon. So we go to our brother, Dr. Martin Luther King. He has a statue down in Washington. Robert Lee and those guys had statues. And they come to the position, we got to take these statues down. They're not representing what it is that we need to have peace and equality, equality and freedom, and everybody have equal opportunity. These things. So we got to take down these guys. Because they stood staunch in the position of opposing any such thing that would really go toward a mutual understanding of humanity. ignorant they were to do so, and probably did not even realize the real consequence of the ignorance at the time of the action. But again, focusing on our brother who also had a dream. We can't find with all of the power conjured up and all the experiences that backed up and showed the inordinates and everything else, the difficulties, the struggles and so forth, through the time all the way to when our brother had a dream. When he announced his dream, he announced it very profoundly, and they gave him an audience, a real position, right in Washington, D.C., to throw that out before the people. And it showered upon those who are tentative and hopeful, boom, like a blessed rain, you may say. But to this very day, with all the powers that be and all the ones who claimed they were in agreement, they were understanding the values that can be coming out of this here consideration for those who've been neglected or denied. And this dream has prompted us to realize it. But you can't find one atom of realization of his dream right now. So mutuality has been worked against for a while.
Yeah. Unfortunately. Well,
Okay.
is it a restructuring of the reasoning that people utilize? Is it that will further endeavor into mutuality, or even making ourselves aware of what our mutuality is? Because some people seem to be going in the exact opposite direction of what you're saying, while claiming to be, unified.
Well, I'm simply trying to say, and it's not easy, but I'm trying to say that we need to have, and have always needed, and is always necessary, to have a mutual position that can and does confirm itself in its value, in its contribution, in its necessity. That we agree is necessary in our life, that we need this. That would be one God. If we all know and realize that we are born in the same manner. If in this world here, a person can come into the world and forget that his mother that birthed him, those two in the process shared passion and pain. You can't find, in many instances, the decent, common sense love of mother and child in a world like ours. And questions and arguments and disputes go on every day. They're so fashionable that they can make movies and stuff about the collapse of those things and how ugly and vicious it becomes, and make money selling that kind of disorder and ignorance into the environment.
Yes, to be replicated over and over.
But remember, the child and the mother, on the day of that child's birth, shared mutually passion and pain. Now, that is just to say that we need to have, again, a position that's unquestionable and is applicable to all. It applies to all. And that one position can easily be defined by people who have common sense. We breathe the same air. We drink the same water. We eat the same food. We rely upon to be sustained the same forces. So we had those things to agree on, or openly said and advocated agreement and respect for those things. Immediately we got a premise that we can start talking more honorably to each other, can't we? Okay. So I'm telling you, I don't know who can say enough about mutuality. I don't feel that I can say enough about it. I can say only one thing. It leads you to something that's more important, and no doubt would be the founding position for clear understanding of mutuality, would be the realization of the wonders of the creator of the heaven and earth who sustains everything that exists. Does that make sense?
Very definitely. Okay. Well, let me ask you, what would be the first step to us actually trying to structure some mutuality into even our individual lives, and then into, I guess, our neighbors' lives, to understand the concepts that you've been relating to us in this last hour or so. What would be the first step that an individual could take to start to be aware of the mutuality, the oneness of God, the oneness of creation? And like you said, we all breathe the same air. Our bodies function in the exact same manner. We all need nourishment. We all need oxygen. We need water. What would be the first step a person could take to be more aware of the mutuality of our existence and then implement it into his life?
Well, why don't we take and try to shape it from a natural step we mentioned earlier? Why don't they perceive in their mind sharing some passion and pain for correction of known and obvious wrongs that all of us have burdened upon us, and the ignorance that come along with it that keeps us, I should say, swimming in the ignorance. Start there. If they can't start with the simplest form, which is the realization of the Creator, if they got to work their way there, a good way for them to work their way there, since they so selfishly molded, look at the passion and pain they shared with the mother of the child and see if they can't reproduce a likeness of that in their concern for their claim of wanting peace and tranquility and contentment. Do that from a human standpoint, and I'm sure the mercy of the Creator, which is all prevailing, will help us get to a normal position. Because it wouldn't be normal if we started without Him. It isn't normal. That's abnormal. Anything abnormal can't cure itself. What you're really saying, or what I'm trying to say, or hopefully will be clear to say, we got to start with the truth. The truth is never damaged by the lie, but the truth will remove the lie. But if you're going to keep on throwing rocks at the sun, thinking you're going to put the sun out, that's like pretty crazy, isn't it?
It's got to be one of the definitions of insanity, for sure.
Well,
So what I'm trying to get at is what you're saying is with the individual, but can that be replicated so that more of a mass of people are thinking on those thoughts? Because again, once we see our individual selves, I can understand the pain of childbirth, the pain that your mother went through during the 3 phases of carrying you. But that's still an individual thing for the individual to think about. What about them after understanding, I've shared passion, I've shared pain, I've shared joy with my mother through, our symbiotic relationship. But where do they take that to the next step so that the neighbor can have a mutual understanding with his neighbor, and then the city can have a mutual understanding with the state, and the state with the country? In other words, not everybody's going to agree, but where do we get to the point where we get the conceptualization of the mutuality of our existence to stop the deterioration of our existence?
well, I think that we really kind of trend into a conditioning here. Again, trying to retrace our steps a little bit here. Each person is born the same way. Each one that is a male or female experiences the same thing from a female. Male or female, born, sharing passion and pain from their mother. There's no children born by the male. If the Creator wanted the male to bear children, I'm sure that wouldn't have been a problem for him to do if this was his choice.
Exactly.
But it wasn't his choice. And if he wanted the pain to be divided up in so many different ways, scattered about so it could not be identified in the simplicity, he could have done that too. But he didn't. He left it in a very simple design. He created in a simple design. And now, when I say left it, that's a word that should be taken out. Not left it. He never left. He's a God and Lord. So that means we're not going to defeat his design. We ain't going to change the design. We're not going to bring in our design. We're going to find ourselves either submitting, adhering to his design, or going to hell. See, one thing about the truth, it promises you this. It's one thing about the profoundness in religious thought. It's strong enough to emphasize and bring focus on the Creator to the extent that it should scare the hell out of a disbeliever. But you got disbelief flourishing and people proclaiming things that is absolutely totally ridiculous and wouldn't stand up in a good common sense conversation with nobody. But it's highlighted, dressed up, glorified, emphasized, and now they're trying to trace it in as early as they can in the minds of babies. So they'll come up with a warped, ignorant way of looking at themselves and the world around them. That's conspiratory engineering.
And indoctrination.
And the leaders in the religion, in the academic world, and in the political world, do you think we should believe that they don't know that? I mean, if we think that they don't know that, and that what they're doing and how they're doing is not with some intent, whether the intent is directly from them or just supportively, they uphold such awkwardness and ignorance. If we think that, no wonder we can't come to a mutual agreement. How are we going to come to a mutual agreement with all of that? We're going to try to pack all of that to go with that? That's going to be a problem. We got to simplify things, bring it to a position where it's clear ABC. It can be understood. And then from that, it naturally builds out. And we have to respect what manifests in that build out. Instead of trying to be tormented or humiliated or shamed by it and therefore act awkwardly at seeing our embarrassment, can't handle it. Understand, we just get all shook up, emotional and stupid and start trying to blame somebody else, and before you know it, we got terror and fear in our own mind, and we're expediting it toward our children and our wives and everybody else and neighbors and everything like that. And we say, oh, we got to learn how to get along. We got to get along. Everybody got to get along. Get along. How are they going to get along? They're coming back to, without coming back to a position that begin with an evidence show of order, simplicity, and truth. That's the problem. Now I know people, you hear people every day. There's new one maybe even showing up every day. Come around and start telling about what they know about this and that and so forth like that. But they go so far away from the ABC of it to try to influence and make some kind of statue or personal identity that they want to be respected or, glorified. That's nonsense. But if one has a little bit of curiosity in his being, and seemingly they have more than a little bit, and if that curiosity is fed things that produces hard and sensitive, unreasonable thinking, you're going to have a world that looks something like a concrete jungle. And people are going to be walking on hard concrete until their knees buckle. Is that right?
Yes. So let me see if I understand what you're saying. So by accepting the simplistic and truth of the creation, by just accepting what is without trying to make it something that it's not, we will begin the journey of this mutuality and this mutual understanding. But just by the simple truth that this is this, don't try to change it into something else because you like that. An orange is an orange, an apple is an apple, a tree is a tree, and calling it something else doesn't change that. But I'm saying, will that lead us down this path that you're talking about of the mutuality of truth and mutuality of our existence in the world?
Well, you're making clear references to many number of things, and it's important. But I think that when you see an entanglement of confusion, such as what we note, first thing that should come to my mind is, how do you untie this knot? How do you take this confused maze of a web of confusion and loosen it up so that people can breathe again. Not just breathe a breath, but breathe a sensibility. To understand what's going on in their life, what's going on with them, and how important it is for them to properly care for what is secured and sensible reasoning to their children and their neighbor. So forth. We got a world where people are looking for a new joke.
Right.
They looking for an understanding, a clarity to a truth or a fact. They looking for a new joke. Is that the world we got? How much mutuality can there be in a new joke?
Yeah, no, it seems like we've gone from sense to nonsense. And I'm asking, how do we get back to sense again? In other words, making sense of what's happening.
By reversing the process. Stop being belligerent, ignorant, arrogant, and curb and then cultivate the landmass of human behavior so that it's not so stony and sandy and so filthy with all these things that we know that's collected and now being allowed. You know, it's just like, the FDA, was it the Food, Drug, and Association?
Administration.
Do you know, sometimes you pick up a bottle of vitamins that says, this has not been approved by the FDA. But the FDA approves cigarettes. Can you explain that?
Point taken.
So mutuality is a complication of this world, man. Because they have made a confusion out of all of the appetites unchecked.
Appetites unchecked. That's a good version of it. I think I understand what you're saying, and I think it's been broken down in a way that can be understood. So if we develop this in our individual selves and start to have commonality amongst our neighbors, what do we do about the person that, and there's always this one that becomes a disruptor, that comes in without smacking them upside the head or something.
We don't own anyone, not even ourselves. We know that. So in other words, it's going to come to a point of faith and trust, not just in ourselves or what we think we know. It's going to clearly come to be where it actually is all the time, with faith and trust in the one that creates and sustains. Now, if someone is so inordinate that they cannot or will not accept truth, it makes it incumbent upon the one who creates and sustains to correct that his creature who has come into obeisance to him and has properly, to the best of his ability, ministered what he has been given common sense directives to do, and it has failed to influence or bring some kind of conscious order to an individual, as you're saying, then the one who creates will have to handle that. I don't think you'd have a problem, do you?
I don't think you have a problem, but I'm saying I think the growth of this inordinacy that we see currently is because too many people are not saying anything and not adding the correctiveness, not just to themselves, but to their environment. In other words, someone comes in and gets into a position of authority and then they add their little proclivities and indiscretions and they try to make it legislated to be legal to do that, just as slavery was once a legal thing to do. They can once again come in and get into a position of authority, and then no matter how the masses want to mutually agree to be, God-fearing, law-abiding, wonderful people, that one disruptive element comes in. Shouldn't we address it? I mean, I know God will address everything. The Creator will address everything in His time. What should we do currently just to keep it
again,
in check?
With the abundance of ignorance and disorder that's in the world, why is it still growing? Because those who have violated, disregarded, and rejected the simple common sense reason that's related to the Creator who sustains, they are sensitive. Their sensitivity is brought them to the point that they know that truth itself It's never removed. So they do all these things to try to see if they can ward off the available truth that's common to the masses so they can still have an existence in their inordinacies. That's what you got to understand. So now, there's people who organized, and they were supposed to, and they have organized their life, their world like that, and they feel that they have accomplished something because what? They have been able to feed all of their improper behavior with all kinds of imaginary delights. You know what I mean? So they've done that. And they're fighting, they feel that this is why I got to take and keep this, because you can only imagine how much fear truth bring to them. The common sense truth bring a terror to them. But truth is not a terrorist, is it? But the inordinate, disobedient one is indeed a terrorist, is that right? Now he's not going to supersede what is established by the creator and the sustainer of this universe. None of us are going to do that. And all of us together can't do it. So ultimately, truth will prevail. It will be better if those who claim they have a relationship with truth, it will be more definitive, define it more clearly, make it more simple for people to understand and follow the course which is actually within themselves. There's a course within themselves that acquaints them with common sense truth and reality, and puts them in a position where they can really see themselves having an input in their life in the way of deciding what's right and what's wrong, because it's common to their nature. But that is not what they're encouraged to look at, believe, to follow, to even try. It's not encouraged. We got jails all over the place. We lock people up. We got people understand we punish them by what we think is the adequate punishment for them. And I mean, there's some people who do things that's bad and that goes across the board. But I'm saying, where do we show the proof that we are absolutely people who are human and have a value sense relative to that humanity that takes us back to the one who creates and sustains us and keeps us in tow with the obligations that he's laid down and the purpose he created us for? When are we going to find those things fed into our curiosity so we can grow healthy? Or are we going to keep on having the new joke? Some deviant distraction that takes us somewhere else, further lost in the difficulties they have imposed upon the common masses and even darken their own world more than they know.
Unfortunately, our economic system is built on just what you said.
Economic system is part of it. Every look, money. See, people, money is nothing but a bartering tool anyway that people use to go down and get some rice or whatever. Why are people worshiping and carrying those things so fully in their mind? The people who love money are the ones who got very little of it. The people who understand money is not that it's a trivial thing, well, they may have more than they need. Because the person who loves money, he loves it because what? It buys him a wine, or it buys him, understand, and he says a wine helps him to settle his nerves. He smokes a cigarette because he thinks that it helps to calm him down. And all these are just habits that's not even understood by the person who participated in the usage or the habit form.
Right. It said that money is a.
But why don't they tell a human being that? He didn't come out of the womb sharing that passion and pain with a cigarette in his mouth or a wine glass in his hand. He didn't come out cussing and fussing. He didn't come out to understand playing devious games and seeking to pull off all kinds of criminality in the world. He didn't come out here for that. He found that here as an accommodation. The same way when if you went somewhere, understand you're on vacation, you went and go to a nice hotel, they say, oh, well, we got this for you, sir. They start giving you all these accommodations. Okay, they give them all these accommodations and corruption without a price. The price comes after you.
After the fact, exactly. After the fact. Like you say, money is a.
So mutually, what? Mutually, there's a lot a basis for a person to come to their senses on, mutually, for good reasons. Looking at the deterioration, the loss, the monies and everything that's collected, because you mentioned money, in and around this country, all the great money they got and they talk about. Look how they fashion themselves in attitudes of how to manage or how to handle or how to distribute money. He said, well, we got to have a budget. If you got a budget that doesn't allow hungry people to eat, or doesn't allow sick people to heal, or it only allows so many of them because it fits in the budget, or it doesn't allow people to be properly educated because it would be just too expensive to educate everyone on an equal basis so they can have some equal common sense for mutuality. You got the wrong budget. And you're acting adverse to the creator of heaven and earth who has and does in fact abundantly. Exactly. Shows his mercy, his compassion, his great and his graciousness to all of the creatures, including the blade of glass. So I mean, you know, we can hammer down and start talking about this religion or that religion, but listen, that's a conversation that needs to be discussed among all religions. With that word that you started with, mutuality. Could they come to a position where they can start to consult with each other about human thought, human reasoning, just as it should be properly understood? You got nations full of flags all over the place. And can we all agree that the sun, moon, and stars is the obvious flag that's never down, never removed, and is representative of all the things that we talk about? The sun, moon, and stars. That's the flag. Any other flag is ridiculous. Well,
yeah. People want to dispute that. What I was going to say earlier is that money is an awful master, but a wonderful servant. And if people just thought of it in that manner, that it's a servant to get you things, to get you places, and not as your master to go bidding and do its bidding.
You know, I remember when I was a child here in the city, and I heard some of the older people, some of them, our people, say things, and I remember how they used to cast things. And I heard many times they say, listen, these are coming from people who didn't have a lot of money, but they had seemingly some common sense. They say, men make money. Money don't make men.
Exactly.
Men can know and cherish the value of many things, or the price of many things, excuse me, and know the value of nothing. Now that's true. But you probably remember hearing your grandmother, older than that, maybe tell you when you were a little child, when you start to edge your way toward fantasy, say, boy, I don't want no stories now.
Yes, exactly.
But what they were really telling you, because they had a tenderness about using the term lie. The word lie was a very poison word, and obviously those who used to take and penalize people with that, you're lying. You know, I remember just envisioning maybe the slave had the worst part of that. He wasn't allowed to communicate anything or explain himself. So those powers were, so coming out of that experience, you see traces of people's humanity reaching in a direction to proclaim its reality, itself, in a natural way. So the old folks didn't say, lie. They said, don't tell me no stories. But they meant, don't be lying to me. Is what they meant.
Oh, definitely. Even as children, we always say, ooh, you telling a story. They wouldn't say you're a liar. They said, ooh, I'm going to tell you telling a story.
See?
Unfortunately.
But now, do we have any stories being told in this world?
Yeah,
about everything? Yeah, you take some pretty tough subjects, man. I'm here wrangling with this subject, trying to see if I can find some kind of way to.
Well, the reason why I brought the money into it,
Well, I mean, no, I mean, I'm talking
Is
the whole
that-
topic itself.
Yeah, I know.
I'm
Is that
trying to respond.
sometimes that affects people's mutuality or mutual understanding of things because someone will say, well, if you believe that, if you think that, then you can't work here or we can't supply you with certain necessities of life because we don't agree with what you're saying. And again, what you're saying right now, there are some people who may be in authority, who may have hold the purse strings, if you will. You say, well, no, we can't contribute to that. We can't even hold them up. As a matter of fact, we'll try to get others to alienate you.
So in other words, you suggest. See, I was trying to stay away from the I should say what I find as a description of the slave-induced mentality. Because see, when someone promises to punish you if you don't accept what they say is reward, I'm gonna punish you if you don't accept this reward I'm giving you. I'm gonna give you $10, but that means you keep your mouth shut and you don't tell nobody the truth.
Okay.
Now that sounds like the most advanced stage of slavery, or other than the Creator. We all need to be His slave.
Yes.
Because He do too much for us. He do everything for us. Yeah. But here we are, some ornery critter whose background is featured with criminality headlines. Come up and got you working in a sweatshop to feed your family a few donuts, and they tell you if you say anything, if you tell your family the truth, the donuts is going away. And because you got a sugar habit, understand your blood been sugarized. We can't do that. The same thing. So you take the donut into a bottle of liquor, a bottle of wine, some dope and stuff like that. And all this stuff that measures out to show you that every idea that will allow common sense mutuality has been interfered with to keep you from having sanity about the self and the people around them.
I think that, again, the hand of disruption comes in to keep what the topic we're talking about is mutuality, but there is always a disruptive element in there. Economics is just one point.
But again, I'm always trying to make sure when we talk about this mutuality, we stay on the fact that there is a sound, absolute basis for mutuality, for humanity. Definitely. And that's the respect that we're talking about for the Creator. I'm saying, look, all this divisiveness they throw in to distract and take us away from them, make us forget. These are tools used by those who already saw themselves in the ruin by the way of the corrupt, criminal conduct, behavior, thinking, and all that kind of stuff that they have practiced in the world. They were thinking a moment ago that, oh, Jesus is great, man. We got airplanes and all this stuff, man. We on yachts, man. We sail in the ocean. Look at us, man. They done forgot that a few years ago, they didn't even know what was around. So what are they talking about? So I mean, how in the world now all of a sudden understand you're the master of the universe,
yes,
and you didn't even know the world was around a few years ago? But that's what's wrong with you. Someone will show up today telling us understand about how great it is to go into this new adventurous idea, understand. Now all of a sudden, understand, we got diversity, unity in diversity, and we got mixed couples and all this kind of stuff. We can juggle the family tree around. Hey man, how dumb have we become to even hear that kind of nonsense without being disturbed? Good question.
That's true.
But we're gonna come to mutuality. You know why? Because truth cannot be removed by foolishness and lies.
And again, it doesn't have to be protected. It just needs to be
It don't need no
loose.
protection. There's nothing you can do with it. You can't. How are you gonna harm truth? You can't harm the truth.
But that's what I don't think a lot of people understand how powerful just truth is by itself.
But they should, because mutuality is so essential. They should try to ask a finding mind a simple question. And that question can only go back to one. With all these things that happen, and you can now see how awkward and inappropriate they are, we should be asking the one who sustains us through all of it. Are we out of order? Are we outside of your plan? because we ain't doing too good. And since it's his power, and he has issued that power and allowed us to have an opportunity to have a verification of what he's created in us and for the purpose he's created us. And we have ignored it by rejecting the common sense ordinances and messages that he sent down. We have rejected that out now. And if we are not the individual that rejected it, we have summons from those who did. And we have practiced the ways of those, and then we have advanced it in the further rejection, claiming that we are doing better than those who rejected it in the first place. And so all of a sudden, we don't know where we are, and even don't even know who we are. So nowadays you got everybody claiming, I'm this, I'm that, he's that. We don't agree because he's that, and I don't agree because I'm that. Now, how ridiculous is that, man? So man used to be careful about who it is that marries into his family. But with that kind of thing, we try to give some kind of description of, how could he even have sex? How could he even know? How could he even wonder who's gonna come in his family? He ain't got no family. Mm. His family is such a disarray. How you gonna count as a family? He can't make a common sense plan how his children gonna go from one stage to another, be educated appropriately, be able to go ahead and enter into life. Because all the inordinacies in his world, all the distractions, all the habit forms, and all the nuisance making stuff that he's invited into every day, that he just go in folly, running into without thinking, and nobody says a word, and all the powers that be they religious, be they academic or political or whatever organizational structures they have put in, doesn't throw a caution sign? I tell you, the truth is going to break somebody's back.
It is, but the simplicity of the truth sometimes, why I say this is, it seems that it comes so easily to some people that they think there needs to be something more complicated, more complex. And I think some of the complexity comes from that.
Well, true, but see, I think, Brian, there may be a way to look at it too. There's many ways, I'm sure, and probably be people who can look at it and give a better description than me. I don't doubt that. I think that, I hope that it's people give a better description than me, because evidently what I'm giving a description is not adequate and proven. So, but I know that a lot of guys, so I'm not threatening. But the point is that we have to look at this. What is it that would make, and we started off with some of the same statements I'm making now, what would make me as a human being look at you and don't see a human being? That could only be me and my ignorance of my own being. Gradually, by degrees, we grow and we develop from a physical perspective, a mental perspective, a spiritual, gradually. But do we calculate and make some determinations of what has been accomplished through that process? Do we look for any realities in that process? The world we're in doesn't invite us to do that.
Well, on that topic, I'm thinking that we're haven't developed to the level of thinking, which is very important. We're on a physiological level. In other words, everything we do is everything we see, everything we feel, everything we touch. But when you get to the mental, the thinking, you develop into a more enhanced individual. And if you can actually discern what the truth is about creation and the creator in yourself, you raise up to the third level, which will be the spirituality of the human being, which is that what we're talking about, where an individual has to actually raise up from just being a physical entity to trying to be a thinking, considering individual, and then to become a spiritual person, to understand the creation and the concept of creation and the concept of a human and a human being and what that entails?
Well, I think that, again, it's a lot. And I think that what we really actually need to always remember that ABC. Now, can I be more than what I was created to be? No. Can I understand what I'm created to be? Yes. Is there information? Is there anything in my environment that helps to educate me as to what I am? Yes. Is there any comparisons there for me to see? Verification of that I believe will arrive at is relating to my identity? Yes. The only thing we have to remember is that all of those exercises that at this point have proven to be mishandled and therefore corrupted, that's made a vast confusion for humanity. They're making all these impositions to try to see and determine and proclaim this and that and so forth, this person, that person, without realizing what we started to begin with. We didn't create ourselves. Nobody we know to create themselves. It ain't no creator came forward and say, I have an argument with the one who say he's the creator. It can't happen. So the point of the issue is, if we want to know ourselves, go to the source. If you want to better ourselves, go to the source. Don't go to a drunk trying to see if you want to stay sober. I mean, how you don't know when to ask a drunk how to stay sober? We live in a world that's full of drunks. And we go to them and we ask them, which way should I go? Why would you ask a fool which way you go when you're not interested in foolishness?
This is true.
So that's what our problem is. We take everybody can come and feed the input. We are the guinea pig people in this country, and they've tried to utilize and scale us as the guinea pig people in the world. That they can just throw anything at us and we grab it. So therefore we go back to what you was talking about dollars. We don't scrutinize. If you only got a certain amount of dollars, there's only a certain amount of things you need to do and should do. Until you have outfitted yourself so that you can do more, you take the realities and you keep those realities so you can build further into reality. But if you're gonna take and make $10 and spend 15, if you understand, if you're gonna allow somebody to tell you, that's okay, you spend 15, we'll loan you 5. And they take you on in a world like that. If you're gonna take and leave with your paid check and go and stop off in some areas of waste, understand, neighborhood bar, maybe, understand, all of a sudden, understand, you done pass it every day with 2 nickels in your pocket to get on the bus, and now you come there, understand, and you see the lights on, they turn the lights on the weekend, turn the lights on, you see the lights on, they turn on the day you got paid, you think you done went to Hollywood somewhere?
Yes.
And that happens every week. And so the children sit home, wondering when dinner gonna come, whether they're gonna get new shoes. And then you come in.
Well, their lights are going to get turned
You come in with a loud, long face about, well, they ain't gonna happen this week. And you're not even sensible enough to say, man, am I doing any harm? Who am I following and what am I following? Those things. I mean, today, people don't even tell people that it's necessary for you to understand your responsibility first to yourself. To be truthful. Be truthful and let that truth be your first identity. You're truthful. You're not fantasizing, not playing no games. This is hard, difficult struggle. It's a hard, difficult struggle. But don't pretend. You understand? We got everything leading our minds astray. You understand? Now we can leave here and we can go and turn our TV on, sit down with our children, and all of a sudden, man, TV come on. Guy jump up and say Superman, he run out, jump on the phone booth, change his suit and fly off in the sky. And we said, no, our children watching some nonsense like that. And the child is saying, Superman, you ain't flying out of the sky. You ain't going to the phone booth changing your suit. So if he compare you to Superman, you're gonna lose.
No in comparison.
See what I'm saying? But that's what you gotta say. There's only one that cannot and you will not find a comparison. That's the Creator. He's that way. He's always as He is. It's us that won't stay in our lane. We're always in another lane. And then when a collision takes place, we start hollering, yeah, man, what you doing over here? Yeah, okay.
Wasn't my fault, it's your fault.
Yeah, you understand? And then the insurance company goes, we're going to look at this and see whose fault it is. And, you know, whoever fault it is, that's going to be the one who got to pay. And the insurance companies are one calamity. When they go to dinner, it's insurance companies. When you go to dinner, you can't go to dinner with the guy you had an accident with. He's going to shoot you.
This is true. By design, I'm sure, by design. Well, ma'am.
I'm really, I should say, very
I've enjoyed.
thankful that you.
Well, I've enjoyed our
Though
time.
these questions may not be the questions that everybody wanted to hear, or the answers may not be the answers they want to hear, but let's say this. We're just human beings. We're just making an effort to try to get us to do a little bit of, you know, make a little analogy of yourself and include, when you see to find yourself, include your family and your loved ones and your neighbors to see where you fit in that situation.
You gotta get them to think.
Well, that will bring them to think. They start doing those mechanical things that they've neglected. It's gonna bring them to thinking, because it takes a little thinking as soon as you get started.
We have to hope so. I mean, I think I want to say I enjoyed our conversation as always. And I think the people who watch this will enjoy the conversation that we had. Not because of me, but probably because of you.
Sure.
But it's all good. The viewing audience, please, if you enjoyed this, share it with a friend, tell 10. And we invite you to join us on our next endeavor. I don't know when that will be, but I've always enjoyed our conversations. Imam and I have talked since the days we were out in Valley Green walking tens of miles, and might not be doing that anymore. But
we've had quite a few experiences.
Yes, very definitely.
We've traveled places where no one would think you'd be. We've spoken and sit with people who no one would think you would, and
Exactly.
we've had responses that no one would think would come. But the thing is that
and
there's
they
a lot of good human beings who are crippled by the abundance of ignorance that pervades the environment to keep the general mass stupid. And they would like to see a difference because they believe a life would be better too. But to have the courage to confront it when you're the inheritors of the mistakes of the others in a sort of beneficial way, it seems, because you have possession of land and mass and factories and stuff like that.
Exactly.
You know, it's hard for them, but they got to do it anyway. They got to come to their senses.
It's hard, but not impossible.
Okay?
As a matter of fact,
it's necessary.
yes.
It's eccentric. It's going to have to be done.
I implore them to look at the word possible and break it down like this. I am possible. So that's why I said it's impossible. So just break the word down. I am possible.
Oh, yeah.
With that, I think we're going to close out, Imam. Again, I want to thank you. I want to thank the people who are going to listen. Remember, there's a quiz afterwards. No, just funny. But you've opened your mind. I hope we've expanded your mind. I hope we've given you food for thought. And again, trust and listen to your intellect and to yourself, and understand there's a mutuality existing out there. Join on to it. This is Brian Ali signing off. We thank you again for viewing.